So I can't tell you enough about how happy I am to have this conference commence this morning. We started about a year ago with a group of friends and scholars where we discussed what to do for this conference, because the Baha'i Chair feels that children and youth are among the most important group of people on this planet. And this group of individuals was most helpful in organizing my thoughts in particular as to how to proceed. And I'm happy to say that we have, as you know, a slate of distinguished scholars who are here today and tomorrow to really unravel for us the whole area of childhood, its history, its current situation in different countries and from different perspectives. So it's really my pleasure to welcome especially the speakers. If you would please stand, I know they're not here, but if you could please stand and be recognized, the speakers at this conference. Some have traveled far and some are from closer, but we are really delighted to have all of them here. Also this morning, I would like to acknowledge a few people in the audience from the University of Maryland, in particular, Dean Ball, who will address you a little bit later up front. Also, we have in the audience a very good friend of the chair, supporter of the chair, Assistant Dean Ann Holmes, please. All I need to tell you is that she's in charge of finances. So we have others from the Dean's office who will come in and out, but in particular, I would also like to acknowledge Mr. Ted Knight, who works with the chair, and we appreciate him being here today. And then I'd like to move to some other distinguished people in the audience who are members of the Baha'i Chair's advisory board. The chair has an internationally advisory board, and there are about 12 individuals who come from various parts of the world and about 3 individuals from the university. Not all of them are here right now, but they will be here throughout the 2 days. If those who are here would please stand up and be recognized. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'd like to just acknowledge the people in the back who have worked very hard and very diligently to make all of this happen. In particular, I would like to thank Dr. Kate Seaman, who is the Assistant Director of the Baha'i Chair. Thank you, Kate. Ms. Brandy Williams, who is the Faculty Assistant at the Baha'i Chair. Brandy. And we also have 2 gentlemen in the back, Bijan Debel and Mr. Anthony Moore, who are also assisting us this morning. Thank you. Last but not least, we have what we call the BSOS ambassadors. BSOS stands for the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences. These are students who volunteer their time at various events in the college and help with coordinating and executing these events, and we are grateful for their time. And I appreciate their work. And we also have some other volunteers who are not here in the room right now. With that, I would like to recognize this year our visiting scholar. The Baha'i Chair has a visiting scholar who comes to us this year from the Netherlands. She's in the back, Dr. Nicole de Bouvry. Could you please just stand so they can see you? Dr. Bouvry has her doctorate degree in philosophy, art, and critical thought from the European Graduate School in Switzerland, and we're very delighted to have her with us. She will be making a presentation later this semester for the university. Now I would like to, as you notice in the program, welcome the Dean of the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, Professor and Dean Gregory Ball, who is an amazing supporter of the chair, but also a visionary for the college. I really would like you to welcome him to the podium now.
Let me join with Hoda in welcoming all of you to this conference and to the University of Maryland College Park. We're delighted to have such a distinguished lineup of speakers who are going to cover this very important topic. I just wanted to say a few words. You know, the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences is one of the components of the three colleges that essentially correspond to what would be an arts and sciences division at other universities. We have behavioral and social sciences, arts and humanities, and computer science, mathematics, and natural sciences. And so like all schools of arts and sciences, we are committed to excellence in our education of undergraduates, our education of graduate students, and the scholarship of our faculty. And you know, very oftentimes, people who are committed to in-depth scholarly analysis in the traditional fields are criticized for being out of touch with many modern issues and with the practical kinds of things students need to know. And that's not our attitude here at all. And one feature of the college, which I think is uncommon and may well actually even be unique, is that we have 3 chairs dedicated to the study of and the promotion of peace. And the one which is most important today, of course, is the Bahá'í Chair for World Peace, which is ably held by Professor Mahmoudi. We also have a Gibran Chair for Values and Peace and a Sadat Chair. And having these peace chairs, when I first came here as dean, I said, what is this? What am I going to do with these? Some of them aren't associated with the department, and they have a, you know, I'm used to ivory tower academics. They actually do things that more than just 10 people read their papers, and it's all very unusual. And I've come to really respect and cherish the fact that we have someone like Hoda in the Bahá'í Chair, because it adds a dimension to our mission that is highly important and gives students who are learning the fundamentals of their fields in the social and behavioral sciences, and more broadly, of course, it's very important our students get a broad education, but they're challenged to think about some of the most important problems of the day and to encounter issues related to values, human regard, how we should act as citizens, as people of the world, what our responsibilities are. And you know, at secular universities like this one, it's often the case that these sorts of things are not discussed because people are nervous that it moves into sectarian ways. The Baha'is, of course, welcome all creeds, all faiths, all people of all backgrounds. And this chair provides a perfect vehicle in order to get students, no matter what their background, atheist, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, and other creeds and religions, to look at the kinds of questions that are universal to all humans and to actually think about things that we should be doing. And this conference captures that, where, you know, just looking through the speakers, we clearly have people who are scholars, who have studied these things deeply, but they're also taking this knowledge and applying it to one of the great challenges that we face in the world today. You know, the education of children, how we're preparing the next generation. And this is just one component of the kinds of things you need to look at if we're really going to try to change the world and promote peace. And so I just wanted to give you that perspective on why this conference is so welcome here, because we really are trying to respond to the challenge given to all universities to not only educate our students in the traditions and the methods and the knowledge of the fields, the academic fields, but also to think about how this knowledge, what it means for the world today and how they might apply it. So again, thank you all for coming, and it looks like it's going to be a very stimulating meeting, and I thank Hoda again for her great efforts, and pulling together these creative and productive conferences.
The Baha'i Chair for World Peace at the University of Maryland, which is housed in the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, is an endowed academic chair, and it advances this interdisciplinary examination and discourse on global peace. It views humanity as a collective whole, and it explores the role of social actors and structures in removing obstacles to creating paths to peace. Part of this exploration includes a number of thematic focuses, and I'd like to just share some of these with you. These focuses include structural racism and the ways in which oppression and suppression of any one people in any society ultimately leads to the oppression of everyone in that society. Other focused themes include the role of women in the creation and sustainment of peace. Similarly, the role of the leaders of the world and global governance in relation to security and peace. Another one deals with the challenge of the environment, climate change in a globalizing world. And finally, human nature. Are we wired to be aggressive and violent and warring, or is there another side to human nature? And what are we learning from good scholarship about all of these themes? So currently, the chair is engaged in an intensive process of learning that explores these themes by inviting scholars and practitioners to offer lectures on their findings, their experiences about the barriers to peace. Each presentation builds upon the next, promoting a process of knowledge generation that analytically unravels new understanding about complex matters regarding the many sides of the human condition and the complexity of this word, peace. The meaning of peace has changed throughout the last century, expanding to include much wider spectrum of issues. No longer is peace simply the absence of war, be it major world wars, one of countless regional or national conflicts, or the Cold War. Peace now requires the resolution of issues such as sectarianism, global inequality, lack of human rights, mass executions, human trafficking, gender inequality, prejudice of race, gender, religion, nation, and class, and environmental injustice and lack of access to resources. A focus on specific conflicts between nations or groups of combatant people will not assist the larger challenge of promoting a global framework for a holistic peace. The Baha'i Chair promotes an integrative approach to world peace. It is non-exclusive, a holistic approach that links together the social, material, and spiritual aspects of society. In this context, there can no longer be an other as the outsider or the enemy. Each time we have fashioned an enemy throughout our history, discord and division has followed, and for generations to come, dissension and hatred have torn apart individuals, communities, and nations. I have to indulge you with the lyrics of a Pink Floyd song called Us and Them. Us and Them. Fittingly, this song addresses the creation of the other and the utter senselessness of war, whether it occurs at the individual level, at the societal level, or among nations. The lyrics read, and when I say men, of course, it includes women. And after all, we are only ordinary men. me and you. God only knows it's not what we would choose to do. Forward, he cried from the rear, and the front rank died. And the general sat as the lines on the map moved side to side, black and blue, and who knows which is which and who is who. The Baha'i chair believes that at the heart of global conflicts are outdated patterns of thought, behavior, attitude, as well as outdated social structures incapable of addressing the needs of an ever-changing world. I give you this brief description because it brings me to today's conference. And it brings me to the importance of why this conference explores the experiences of children and youth throughout the world. As you may have read the announcement to this conference, in part it read that around the world the experiences of children range from those with affluence, well-funded schools, accessible health care, and peaceful homes and communities, to those who are impoverished, exposed to untold violence, and victims of injustice. This conference, comprised of some of the most distinguished scholars, seeks to widen and deepen our understanding of childhood and youth in relation to the inequalities of nation, gender, ethnicity, and race, education, class, religion, and minority-majority belonging. You may ask, why focus on children and youth? And how does that theme address this conference, the purpose of this conference, address the goal of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace? Children are remarkable learners and actors. They are carriers of the future. Currently, they reside in a world that, although not of their own making, has profound influence on their lives, both positive and negative. They come into the world utterly dependent and helpless. From the moment of their birth and into their childhood, they are intensely engaged, captivated and curious about their surroundings, about the people who care for them, and others with whom they interact. They are razor-sharp observers, taking in with all their senses whatever crosses their path. Given the opportunity, they will show incredible curiosity, interact and connect with people, objects, animals, music, art, tools, and technologies, eager to learn about the world in which they move. They closely observe and scrutinize the behavior and actions of key individuals in their lives, who they view as examples or models to be emulated. The influence of such individuals, both positive and negative, shapes their outlook towards other children, towards the adults, toward nature, and society. In this context, what children and youth learn over the first approximately 15 years of their lives has profound impact on who they become as adults. Currently, too many children and youth are exposed to harm, to famine, to violence, to disease and pain. Too many victims are victims of too many children are victims of violent indoctrination, are injured and broken by the evil and barbarism of war. They are exploited as slaves, child soldiers, and sexual objects. And too many, far too many, suffer from physical and emotional neglect and abandon. Just a few statistics about children worldwide. According to a recent UNICEF report, some 3.5 million children under the age of 5 who are Syrians know nothing but displacement, violence, and uncertainty. Worldwide, 65 million children are displaced due to conflict, poverty, and problems with climate change and environmental problems. In Nigeria's Borno state, 244,000 children suffer from malnutrition. 50,000 are at risk of dying from starvation. And in the US, violence is the third leading cause of death among US teens and young adults. In the US also, 21% of young people under the age of 18 live in a poor family. In the US, 65% of black children live in low-income families. 62% of American Indian children live in low-income families. 62% of Hispanic children live in low-income families. Also in the US, 15.3 million children in 2014 lived in food-insecure households, where rates of food insecurity are disproportionately higher in minority households. Just a few more. In South Sudan, 750,000 children have been internally displaced, 400,000 have been forced out of school, and 12,000 are reported being used by armed forces and groups in the conflict. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, 2.7 million of the dead have been children. And one in 5 children in Congo will die before their 5th birthday. Other parts of the world, children who are exposed to consumer culture, of which you will hear more about in this conference, are reported to be more depressed, more anxious, have lower self-esteem, and suffer from psychosomatic complaints. Findings show that children as young as 3 can become passionate consumers and devout media watchers. The media message that is directed at girls in particular is centered on their physical appearance and in their most important feature, which follows them throughout their lives. The emphasis on weight, specifically a thinner body, causes girls to become dissatisfied with their body and view themselves as objects to be judged and evaluated based on appearance. This quick snapshot of children and youth in our world is disconcerting. And yet, there is another aspect to children that is so important for us to keep in mind and really to take away from this conference. And it's a more positive, much more positive dimension. And it concerns what research is telling us about very young children and their capacity for cooperative and positive social relationships with other human beings. Here, I just want to show you a short clip from the professor of psychology and neuroscience, Michael Tomasello. And I apologize if it's not the best quality, but he and his associate have pursued an interdisciplinary research that combines social cognition, social learning, and communication and language skills in human children in comparison with the great apes. And his specific research looks at 3 types of altruism in children: helping, informing, and sharing. And he notes that around their first birthday, when they first begin to walk and talk and become truly cultural, human children are already cooperative and helpful in many situations. He says such findings don't deny the fact that children and adults are selfish about their own well-being and survival. Rather, they point out that human cooperativeness and helpfulness are laid on top of this self-interested foundation. Tomasello explains, and I quote, that adults who assume that children are not naturally helpful and cooperative and attempt to make them so through external reinforcement and punishments do not create children who internalize social norms and use them to regulate their own behavior. Ample evidence from these findings exists to confirm that the most effective parenting style, one that encourages internalization of social norms and values, is found among parents who communicate with children about what Tomasello says, the effects of their actions on others, and about the rationality of cooperative social action. So I'd like to just show you a few minutes of what Tomasello's research is showing us.
You who are not steeped in evolutionary thinking, cooperation, insofar as it includes something in the direction of altruism, is an evolutionary problem. Darwin recognized himself that individuals sacrificing themselves for the good of others was a problem for his theory. And the only species that are anywhere near as cooperative as humans are the eusocial insects, who all share incredible numbers of genes with one another, and Hamilton and others have explained that in terms of kin selection. So you can explain large cooperation with altruism in the case of kin selection, because on the level of the genes it's not altruistic at all. I'm promoting my genes, even though I'm sacrificing my own individual organism. But in the case of humans, we have large-scale cooperation with strangers, with unrelated individuals. We trust them. We give our credit card number over the internet. We do all kinds of cooperative enterprises and institutions and large cooperations with differentiated roles, differentiation of division of labor, and so forth and so on. And no other species does that with non-kin, anywhere near the extent that humans do. And certainly not any other non-human primates. We donate things to charity. We help old ladies across the street. We do altruistic, okay, I'm putting quotes around it for those of you who are skeptical. We'll come to that. We do altruistic things all the time for one another, and this is a bit of a puzzle from a strict Darwinian point of view. This is a 24-month-old child. This is a silly little cooperative game. Now, the adult is programmed to be a little bit difficult. Now, notice the child points, and he puts it up here. Remember that for the pointing. Okay, now the adult is difficult, and the child tries a little bit to do it by himself. Okay. And now he's again trying to be a little bit difficult. Okay, and he doesn't just put it back on the trampoline, he puts it in the hand, right? He's helping him to do it. And now, okay, I mean, so these are little games we made up or whatever. The trick is, again, that he's being difficult, and we want the experimental manipulation is he stops, and this was a pilot subject, and he was playing around. Now watch what he does now. Okay, so all right, so this is commitment, okay? All right, so the child really wants to play this game, really wants to play it together, okay? All right, here's the chimp's idea of this game. They've seen it one time. They've seen two human adults doing it, both the, okay? Okay, this is Annette, and Annette is not so interested in this. Okay, she understands, look, she understands the imperative. Sit here. Mm-hmm. Okay, ready? Set? Okay, no. All right. So there is absolutely nothing difficult about this. The chimp is perfectly capable of doing this. The chimp is perfectly capable of doing that thing in there. My gloss is the chimp basically thinks this is a stupid game. That's what the chimp thinks, okay? But I would submit to you that basically every species on the planet thinks this is a stupid game except one, and that's the 2-year-old human child, all right? So this is a social game whose only point is to do it together. If you go back and you look at the child again, there's all kinds of monitoring and smiling at one another. Okay. In addition, here's another one. This child is now 18 months, so either just barely linguistic, and in this case, this is now a real experimental trial. The other one was from a pilot subject, but this one he's actually very doing it. And then he's going to do this for a while, and then he's just going to stop. And you'll see what the child does. 18 months means just a little bit of language, maybe a handful of words, depending on the child. Some children don't have any productive language at this age. So the child is coordinating, kind of teasing. And now he's going to stop. If you want to watch him stop, you can see him here, but actually it's better to watch the child. Okay? The child's ready to go. The adult's not doing his part. Come on. And there's a point, and the adult's programmed for 15 seconds, and the kid's even going to disengage and go get him and drag him over. Okay? And now, okay, he's going to do it.
There's just a couple more.
Now, motivation in terms of helping, this was also a science paper that we had in the same issue. These are 18-month-old children. We now have 14-month-olds. And the idea here is, we called it altruistic helping because the child's getting nothing out of it. So here, he drops his spoon down there. The child has plated this by himself, 18-month-old. Now watch, he's going to get it, and he'll even look up sort of first and hand it right to him, okay? And he wants to put it in the cup. He pops it down again. Okay, so very simple behavior, but basically the idea is there's nothing in it for the child.
And here's the last one.
Okay, so he's hanging clothes. He drops the clothespin, and you can see how young this child is. This is a big effort for this little kid. And he's no reinforcement. He's not being asked. The adult doesn't monitor him, doesn't look at him, doesn't communicate to him, just drops it and reaches. And again, the child looks up first and hands it to him. So these are quite spontaneous altruistic acts. Now, of course, we have people who say this is altruistic because it's not costly. Well, okay, it's not hugely costly, but, you know, that kid put a little effort into that.
Okay. Anyway, I think this sort of research is really important for us, especially who are examining children, to keep in mind, because in a sense, our children are our trust, and they are really our future. As learners, actors, and carriers of the future, they can become protagonists, capable and ready to construct and fashion a better world, and to choose to become emblems of a better future.